Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakat Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach the Bible in 100% truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting with the 144,000, consisting of the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans in the land of North, Central and South America, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst other nations. Shalom to you. So today I've got a few precepts here, and there's many people out there who teach the Bible and claim to go into the scriptures and explain them. And obviously, you have false prophets out there that are either, purposefully, they've been paid off to break down particular scriptures incorrectly, or, they genuinely have, missed the point. The Holy Spirit's maybe not working with them and they've been blinded. Yet, they try to break down these scriptures and they break down certain particular prophecies incorrectly. And one of them being the MOTB, that's one of the main ones at the minute. That's the next major prophecy that is, we're waiting on. It's due to take place, and it's going to have a massive effect, a huge change in the psychology and the mindset of the people, all the people on earth. And it's going to bring, massive changes, and then it's going to bring, lots of problems and issues after that, Jacob's trouble. So it's quite an important prophecy to be aware of and understand it fully in its entirety. And so, we teach the MOTB, being able to not being able to buy or sell without this MOTB. And we teach that MOTB to be the RFID microchip, which can be placed under the skin, and then you will be told that that is the only way in which you will be able to make purchases, payments, and so on and so forth, buy and sell. So it's a big prophecy that's due to take place very soon, and you have people out there that go against this particular teaching, especially the so-called Hebrew Israelite teachers and prophets, which are actually turning out to be false prophets. And they'll say that the MOTB is something else, and either they've been paid to do that, or they've just been blinded by Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, and the Most High is not dealing with them and not allowing them to understand the particular prophecy. And so one of the arguments these particular people will say, for example, they say, well, the word microchip or RFID or any other particular scientific phrase, they're not written in the scriptures. And that's what they seem to think. And people view this book as an ancient book, which it is. It's written obviously many 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. So what's written is written from ancient times. And obviously when we go to the KJV, for example, we're reading it in an older version of English than what we have now. So and then obviously people go out there, they get their actual physical Bible. Some people have them online now, but obviously people have the actual Bible. They're looking at the bits of paper, and then they get that whole feeling that this book is an ancient book. And then some people who are really not into the scriptures, they tend to look at the book as something that was written thousands of years ago, and as what could that have to do with the modern day times? They can't really get their mind into it. And the problem with them particular people is because they've never actually gone into the scriptures themselves. They've probably relied on other people to tell them things, and when people break it down wrong, you're never going to be able to understand the full picture. So it's quite important to understand, where do we get these things from and why, and how it occurs. Another common question is the fact that Babylon the Great in the scriptures is actually America. And so people say, well, I can't see America written in the Bible. These are ancient prophets that have written down what they saw in visions. and they're now written for us on paper. And these ancient prophets were living 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and so they America hadn't been created as a land, and it was not named, and so they didn't know the name at that point. But they would have had a vision of a particular land, and they would have said, well, the things that are being done on that land remind me of a different kingdom that came before it, and so that's why they're referred to in those particular names. One prophet will look at America and see it as a replica of Babylon, ancient Babylon. So that prophet may call it, the daughter of Babylon. Another one will refer it, or the Chaldees, Assyrians. You've got ancient Egypt. So you've got many different names for America, and what it is, whichever prophet you're reading about had their own particular vision, saw this particular land, and understood what they were seeing. So when it came to describing that particular land, they didn't know the name, so they just said, well, this is the philosophy that those people came in. And so America is a multitude of different philosophies, different ancient philosophies, which it has managed to push those philosophies across the globe and infiltrate them into the minds of the other nations. And that's how they bear control at the minute in this current day society. So you're not going to find the word America, because that's how the prophets came about. They saw these particular things. They didn't know what they were called, but they described what they were seeing. And it's the same thing with modern day technology. People look at this book and they say, well, this is like an ancient book. It's black and white. I'm looking at it. It's paper. It just seems all old and old fashioned. The yees and yays, and it doesn't quite click. The main fact is you need the Holy Spirit working with you on your mind to open up the understanding to you. And some of these questions are fair questions in the beginning, but if it's been broken down to you and you keep repeating those same questions, then it's you're not looked at as the brightest, because ultimately, to those who have the Spirit working on them, it's very simple, very easy to break down, and very easy to understand. The scriptures are written. See, again, people say, oh, these scriptures are written by these guys thousands of years ago. It was not. It was written by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, and then obviously through the prophets who have written them down. And you can tell, when you go through the scriptures, you analyze it, you analyze what it takes to understand it. You analyze that, you're supposed to go from precept to precept, yet you can still go through particular chapters. When you understand code words that it takes to understand certain things, you understand the way in which prophets didn't understand what things were called, but were able to describe what they do, and you link this all together, and then you understand that this book is written by a higher power. It has to be. It's too genius to be written by a human, a man. And when you consider that there are multiple prophets living in different times who are able to write their own piece of whatever they were inspired to do by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, and yet those individual pieces are able to stick together and intermingle and blend and work together. See, that alone, this is how this is beyond what a human could do. This is a super intelligent, higher being power that would have to formulate these scriptures and put them together in that particular way. And when you couple that with the fact that then you have for thousands of years the understanding of this book is taken away from the people on the earth, and now it's brought back to us. This is definitely the work of a higher power. It's easy to understand. But yeah, like I say, when you look at the scriptures, there are things that are we can only consider modern day items in the current day and age that we're living in, and they are described in the scriptures. This is Revelation 13. Now I am going to go on to the MOTB, but before we do that, if you jump up a little bit to verse 13, this is talking about If we start at 12, for example, Revelation 13 and 12, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. So this is talking about the second beast. The second beast is the geopolitical system that we live under today. It says, and causeth the earth and them that which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So this is talking about the ancient Roman Empire being reborn into the time that we live in now, the revised Roman Empire, which started off through the time of Renaissance, roughly 500-600 years ago. And this, we always describe this particular beast as the beast that we're living under today. And so when you jump down to verse 13, for example, it says, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So, people say, well, how do you know, this beast is the beast that we're living under today? And I never heard I typed in fighter jets into the scriptures, but it pulled up no results. But what you're reading about here is an empire, and within that empire there will be such thing as fighter jets. That's how this. You're reading here verse 13, and it says, and he doeth great wonders, so that he make fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So when you consider, all the information that you have out there, and all the history in the world that we have, to go as far back as you can, name an invention that a human being has created, that it says here, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. What creation on this planet Earth, ever since human beings can remember, what creation on this earth has been able to shoot fire from the skies down to the earth? There's only one particular, there are very many versions of this particular item, this object, but there's only one particular object, and that is a fighter plane, a fighter jet. They have the ability to get up in the skies. It has to be something that gets up in the air very high for it to be described as making fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So this is something that men have witnessed, fire coming from the skies down to earth. There's only one invention throughout the whole planet, throughout the whole history, as far as we can remember, that goes up there and shoots fire down here. And it's an invention created by man, and other men have witnessed it. So you'll read in the description, you're reading the actions that a fighter jet takes to do its performance, to do what it's supposed to do what it's made to do. So Apostle John has, this is pretty much what he's mentioning. If he'd known it was a fighter jet and someone had said to him, well, look, that thing you saw was a fighter jet, he would have said, yeah, well, and I saw these guys that had fighter jets and they were shooting them down to the ground, and there were other men standing there watching. So this precept is a description of what a fighter jet does. And so when you consider this precept, you have to consider a fighter jet. You have to consider the steel, or the iron, should I say, that this particular weapon, which is what it is made out of. It has all this technology, this electrical power. It has the ability to go hundreds. I'm not sure how fast these fighter jets go nowadays, but it goes hundreds of miles an hour through the sky, shooting rockets. It has a lot of technology. It has radio to stay in touch with its base, and you had to have factories to build that. You had to have scientists to design it. You had to have this whole scientific world and all the technology. You need to have fuel to be able to power it, and you need to have the production of fuel en masse ready to be able to obtain at any point given. And so these things are all possible for this particular precept to take place. So just reading that one particular precept, you have to consider all that technology, the rubber tires, the pressure on the tires, that you've got the guy you've got these fighter jets that are on on, they're on the ships at sea. So that's again more technology that's gone into producing the landing base for this particular fighter jet out at sea. You've got the guy in front of it with the signals telling him when to go, when to stop, and when to take off. Even the parachute, you've got the parachute, the eject button. This is all technology that's gone into that particular fighter jet, and this is what's spoken of in this precept. So John didn't see, the whole build-up of the Industrial Revolution, and then to say, oh, they produced fighter jets at the end of it. But he just saw this particular object, and it was in the heaven, and it shot fire to the ground in the sight of men. And like I said, there's only one particular object that does that. And again, going back to the particular beast, and it's more proof that we know that beast, that geopolitical system, is the time that we're living in now. Because the times that we're living in now, we witness fighter jets. We can see them. You can see, you go to these shows and they're flying around doing their business. If you look on the news, every now and again when there's a war, you'll see them in action doing their thing. This is what it does. And there's nothing else, like I say, in human history that's ever been able to do that. Now, some of these false prophets, they'll agree with that. They'll say, yeah, that is a fighter jet. But when it comes to the MOTB, all of a sudden, they got brain fog. They can't get it. Either Hashem Yahweh Shai has blinded them, or they've been paid to teach something else. And people, this is a common one. People will say, well, I don't see the word microchip or RFID in the scriptures. This is Revelation 13:16, and it says, and he calleth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now this mark goes back to the word charagma, which I've explained many times is an incision in the skin, a cutting into the flesh. And it says here, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name, or the beast, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 603 score and six. So we just concentrate on this bit, the cutting into the flesh, and not being able to buy or sell without it. And when you consider cutting your hand, making cutting into your flesh or any part of your body, and then going into a store and being able to use the basis of that to purchase something, that's never happened. Categorically never happened, never taken place, and it's not likely to take place in the future. So you have to ask yourself, when it comes to buying and selling, this is something that we're going to be told, this is the only way to buy or sell, by having a particular cutting into the flesh. So, what form of payment method exists out there today where, you would have to first cut into the flesh to enable you to have that payment method and to use it. And at the minute it's not mandatory, but there are actually people out there living with this particular thing today. And, this is what you're seeing on the screen here. This is at the bottom, the microchip implant that lets you, that's going to say pay. That's the BBC. So that, there are currently people out there to this very day around the world. There's quite a few in Sweden, and they have already had this particular RFID chip placed under their skin. As you can see, this lady in her hand. And so that, when it comes down to it, there's people out there today that are actually going out there and buying things in this particular way. They had to have a cutting into the flesh, and then with that a device was then placed in that cutting, because as we just realized, you can't just take a cut and go into a shop or store and buy something with it. Some device has to be placed in it. So you relate what's written in the scriptures, the description of the technology that you have, that's been written by John, and you use your understanding, and we can see it right in front of us, what we see here. this lady had to have a cutting into the flesh, and that is allowing her to buy and sell. And at this point, it's not made mandatory to all the people in the world, but it will be soon. So people say, I don't see the word microchip or RFID in the Bible. Well, to understand those two particular precepts of Revelation 13, I think it's 16 and 17, you have to understand what you're reading. What you're reading is the action that takes place once using a certain type of particular technology. And that particular technology, again, exists today. Don't forget, in verse 13, we established that beast system is a system that operates today in these times, because that same beast system will ultimately bring you fighter jets, and we can see those existing today. And so this all goes back into that technology. So now, when you consider those precepts, you have to consider the RFID microchip, the scanner, the tool that they have to scan your details. And obviously you have to have an industry in which you can buy and sell, which we do around this world. You then have to consider what it takes to get this technology in place. You have data centers. I know a guy who works for BBC, and he works with the data and all that kind of stuff, the data centers. And he said to me, you've got buildings, you've got like an office block building, 6 or 7 stories high, and just full of data sets, frames, racks, it's all set up, and you've just got data all being stored in these particular boxes, this technology. I'm not really too deep on all that type of technology, but for this particular process, for this to take place, what you're witnessing on the screen, and that type of technology exists. It has to happen, to have, you have the internet, you have a system where people have this, online payments. At the minute, you can use your credit card, or you can go into the store, you can tap the credit card, and it's all done through the internet and through the satellites and the signals that are sent around. And a lot of the information is then stored in these data centers, and they have huge processors, and this is how the internet exists. In your mind, all you have is your PC and your laptop, and you go on Google and you just search, and the pages just appear. They just appear. But there are buildings out there with this technology up in them. Again, just like previously, you've got to consider all the technology that's gone into developing this stuff, the inventions that have taken place, the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, being put on certain people to invent things, to bring forth this technology over the course of the last 20 to 30 years. And now you have the ability where pretty much all stores around the globe have one of these chip readers in their store. You see the little Wi-Fi symbol on there, and like I say, that will read your phone, it will read your credit card, and it will read these RFID chips, which you can have placed under the skin by receiving a cutting into the flesh, and you can use that to buy or sell. So again, you've just seen the description of this technology, all that, everything I just mentioned. You've got to consider all that when you consider these particular precepts and more. I'm just giving you a brief rundown of the internet and how it works, but there's way more technology, information, man hours, engineering, scientific engineering, computer engineering. That's all gone into that, all this industry for this particular prophecy to take place. We're right on the cusp on when this type of technology, this type of payment system is made mandatory. That's the only difference, that we're left. This technology exists, it's out there, it's written about, it's described in the scriptures, in the precepts, and the last thing yet to make it, fulfillment of the prophecy is to make it mandatory to every man, woman, and child on this planet Earth, as the scriptures tell you. Just looking at these images. There was one I saw before. where is it? The guy, he had actually, you can see the bandage. Oh, there it is. And he had so there you go. Look, he's got a plaster because he has a wound, because he had to have a cutting into the flesh to receive that particular implant. And once you receive that, you do have the ability to go out and to buy and sell, because you can have your financial details stored on it. And when you go to these stores which already have these scanners, all you need to do is be able to transmit your information to them. There are people living in Sweden today with this type of technology. I was thinking about it on a slightly deeper level, and the people today who have it would probably have it. Well, then they're going to have it on that fiat currency system, so their bank account would exist as it normally would do for you and I. But where you got sent the credit card in the post, and you can the bank card. Before they used to send you a checkbook. Nobody will send you that anymore. Now they'll send you the bank card. They say use that to get your money out. And obviously eventually, they'll say, well, we'll give you this thing and you can store your information in it. That's what these people would have today. They'll have that RFID chip, and it'll have that same information stored on there. So when they go to the shop, obviously it recognizes and it accepts payment. Now, we're obviously expecting a global crash of the fiat currency system and an ushering in of a digital system, and then the possibility of them trying to develop that into a credit score system. So eventually they will move that whole system on. But the main focus on the prophecy is to avoid this particular part where you're told to take a cutting into the flesh in order to buy or sell. And again, to those that say, well, I never saw the word microchip or RFID in the Bible, read the description, read what's being described. Apostle John is describing the action that it takes place to use that particular technology. And unless you could pull out other information of some group of people out there somewhere in the history of the world that were using, just being able to buy just because they had a wound in their hand, that if you can prove that, then fair enough. But you're not going to be able to, because that's never existed. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6. I'm just looking at descriptions of modern day technology in the Bible, and this is the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra chapter 6 verse 18, and it said, "Behold, the days come that will begin to draw nigh, and visit them that dwell upon the earth." This is the Most High visiting the earth in the times that we're in and we're about to hit. Verse 19, "And will begin to make inquisition of them what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness." These people that are in power today, the kingdom, the people that are ruling today, they will be judged for their unrighteousness. It says, "And when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled," the children of Israel. It says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. And that world vanishing away is not the actual physical globe. It's the society that we live in, the geopolitical system that we live under. That whole thought process. English being the language of English being the most common language on the planet, and that's going to go straight out the window. That's all part of the old world vanishing away, and rulership of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai in the kingdom of heaven, living by the laws, statutes and commandments of the scriptures. That is going to be the new world ushered in with a new government, a new power structure. It says, and so when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. The books shall be open before the firmament, and they shall see all together. So this is a description of the internet. You have the books, which is the scriptures, being opened. So we understand that's happening now, because you have men of understanding out there who are giving you the true understanding of these scriptures. But they're being opened before the firmament being the ozone layer, and they shall all see together. So how is this book being seen together? I'm reading this particular scripture right to you right now, and the possibility is for everybody out there on the planet Earth to see this at the same time. Now, whether they do or not is another thing, but the fact is that can take place through the internet. There's no other way that I could project this book onto the ozone layer for it to be reflected around the globe. In fact, when you understand the internet, then again we're back to the signals being beamed from where I am today and up to the satellite. First of all, go through the data centers and be stored, and they have all this information stored on the internet. Everything you do, part of their track and trace system. And these messages will be beamed up into satellites and be beamed all around the globe and be received by many people, various people around the globe in various parts of the world that I've never been to or will never be able to get to. So I am able to open this book before the firmament for everybody to see through the internet. That is the description of using the internet. You'll have a boxing match. You'll have Tyson Fury's coming up versus Usyk. That's coming up very soon. And what people are going to do, even through the obviously the fight will be on TV, but it'll also be streamed online, and you will have billions of people who will be picking up a signal that will be beamed from wherever the fight is, beamed onto the satellites, and then back again around the globe into these data centers, into these local Wi-Fi connections, into these people's particular devices, whether it be their phone or their iPad or their computer, their PC, laptop. So again, this is all the technology that you've got to consider when you're reading these particular precepts. These precepts are discussing modern day, high-tech scientific technology that's taken scientific engineering to produce. These precepts would not come to pass if that scientific engineering had not taken place. You've again, you got to understand these these ancient prophets. They saw things, they didn't understand what it was called. If nowadays you have a thing called a porcelain sink with a chrome tap, and a lot of people, it's quite a common thing to have. Many people around Europe especially, they have ceramic sinks and chrome taps. Now, if you didn't know what a sink was or a chrome tap, you were living 3,000 years ago and you had a vision of one, what would you call it? You'd call it the stone that catches the water, because that's ultimately what a ceramic sink is. It's one piece of stone that's been carved into the shape of a sink, and it catches water. And then you'd be looking at the chrome tap. You wouldn't know what a tap is. You'd be looking at the chrome, and you'd think it's a mirror. So you say, the stone that catches the water that falls out of the mirror. And you could write that 3,000 years ago. You've seen a vision of a man in 2023 with his ceramic sink and his taps. So you write it down. The stone that catches the water that falls from the mirror. And that's a sink, porcelain sink, chrome taps. Let's move on. So this is 2 Kings. So we've established that modern day technology is discussed in these precepts. For these precepts to come to pass, this modern technology has to be invented and designed and man-made and scientific. Many man hours of scientific engineering have to take place for these precepts to come to pass. But what about technology that is beyond our level? We as humans, as a human race, I'm not really involved in that because I understand this truth, but the human race, they got these ideologies of designing spaceships and being able to create technology on that type of level. And the US government has come out and stated before that these so-called UFOs, these chariots of Israel, that we know them to be, they are of technology that is 1,000 years in advance of where we are today. So that is the type of technology that humans dream of and aspire to, but they're very, very far away from it, despite all the modern day technology that we have. It's another level of technology. It's the most highest level, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai. And so we know that the There are many encounters of so-called UFOs, chariots of Israel, described in this book. And again, this is a form of technology. This is what I don't understand with these false prophets. You talk about this modern day technology, and when it comes to chariots, so-called UFOs, when it comes to fighter jets and nuclear ICBMs, they get it. But when it comes to the MOTB, they can't get it. And they say, well, where is where's microchip, or all these words? Because all of a sudden they lost it. That's how a lot of them have been paid. But there are some out there that are sincerely blinded, and actually sincerely wrong, and blinded by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. So this is 2 Kings, chapter 2, I'm going to start at verse 9. This is Elijah and Elisha. If you don't know the story, Elisha is pretty much expecting Elijah to be taken up by a chariot very soon. So he's following him around there, they're getting their business done. And at some point he's expecting Elijah to be taken up. Elijah said, I'm going to be going soon. I'm going to be going up to heaven in a chariot. And this is verse 9. And it says, and it came to pass when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, and if you don't see me, it shall not so be. And it came to pass, as they went on and talked, and behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, what you'd call a so-called UFO, and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And so that whirlwind, that took Elijah up, represents the tractor beam, what they would call a tractor beam. You must have seen it before. These UFOs, they have, they can be depicted as having these tractor beams, and that's what Elisha witnessed Elijah being beamed up in. We jump back, and it came to pass, as they went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. Because that tractor beam came down and created a whirlwind, and it says, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven, into the chariot, into the sky. And obviously, Elisha would have been shocked, and then the beam would have come down, and it may even just pushed him back a bit, and he would have probably staggered back in awe, in surprise and awe and wonder. And it says, and Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces, because he was so gobsmacked at what he'd see. It just overwhelmed him. You got to think how, when you see people react, you see them do funny things. You see people die, you see people, have children, or so on and so forth, and they have these major traumas, and you see them, react real funny. And, ultimately you can understand how Elisha's reacting, because of what he's just witnessed, and he's so overwhelmed by it, he just ends up, just ripping his garment and rent them in two pieces. So again, this is when you go back to these images of these tractor beams on these UFOs, so-called UFOs. There was one image down here, you see, this is kind of like brought to my mind, something what would have happened, because they would have been walking along talking, Elijah and Elisha, and he said, I'm going soon, and he would have said, yeah, okay, can I have a double portion of your spirit? And he said, well, if you see me, when I'm gone, then it can be so. And then all of a sudden one would have appeared, and that's why you see it say, the chariot of Israel, the horsemen and the horsemen thereof. they'll probably come in formation, as scriptures tell you. And so, with that, a tractor beam came down, took Elijah up, and Elisha was probably knocked back a little bit, stepped back, overwhelmed, in shock, couldn't believe it, and next thing you know, he's ripping his clothes into pieces. That's how much it got him. It's the same way that we tell you that what's about to happen, what's about to go down in the time of Jacob's trouble and the day of the Lord. We tell you about these chariots and these so-called UFOs that are going to appear. And we hope to be delivered onto one of them, onto the main chariot, in order to be delivered out of the destruction. But when it comes to pass, those that it's going to happen to, they're still going to be overwhelmed. They're still going to be in awe and shock and completely gobsmacked. And it's going to be it's the day of the Lord. It's the fear of God. The fear of God is going to be put into everybody on the planet Earth. And as much as whoever the elect are going to be joyous of it, they're also going to be, feel like renting their own clothes into two pieces. You imagine one of these just appeared, bang, and it just took your friend, zoop, gone, in a whirlwind. So, again, these false prophets, you describe to them a tractor beam, and they can get it. You describe to them, the payment system, what you're seeing on the screen, they don't get it. What does that tell you? Then that they're either blinded or they're paid. And this is Habakkuk chapter 3, and I've brought this out before. And this goes into the chariots. It says, and the Most High came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was a hiding of his power. So this represents the chariot that Yahushua will come upon, roll up on this earth in this huge chariot. And it says, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hands. The horns, when you take it back to the original text is the word Quran. The Hebrew word Quran, which means rays of light, and these rays of light are laser beams. This so-called UFO shooting laser beams of fire, and it's going to bring destruction when it comes. When Yahushua comes in the army of angels, only will you have the ICBMs shooting down on America, you'll also have these chariots shooting laser fire. It says here, his brightness was as the light. When he comes, he's going to come with that bright, shining countenance light, and he had horns, beams of laser, rays of light, should I say, coming out of his hand, and there was a hiding of his power, because you couldn't really see where they're coming from, where they just shoot, they just appear. And again, this is something that human beings, they dream of, and they create their sci-fi movies, and they show you, all their ideas of where they'd like to be. But, as the US government have come out and stated before, to reach this technology, they're thousands, 1,000 years behind, if that. So, you're going through these scriptures, and everything that I've spoken to you of today is of technology. Some of it exists today. None of it existed say past 100 years ago. And then when it comes to the chariots, this is technology that does exist and has always existed. It's the the vehicles of Yahweh Bashim, Yahushai. But to us, according to the technology that we have today on this earth, at its best, we are 1,000 years behind that type of technology. So this is all in these scriptures, all in this ancient book. This black and white, boring little ancient book that people look at it as, what's that got to do with me? This is fully describing to you the scientific engineering at its best. That's what it's describing to you. This is Isaiah. This is the last one I'm going to go to, Isaiah chapter 14. And this is talking about the destruction of America. This is, for I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh of hosts, of armies, and cut off from Babylon the name, and remnant, and son, and nephew, saith Yahweh. Verse 23, I will also make it a possession for the bittern, which is a bird, a desert creature, and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith Yahweh of hosts. So Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua, is bringing destruction to America, and here it's being described as a besom of destruction. So something that, a besom is a sweeping agent. It comes with a sweeping action. So you're seeing destruction being described in the motion of sweeping. So, what have you witnessed? Either firsthand or, more than likely through the TV. What have you witnessed where you're seeing a huge bit of land, wherever it may be, being destroyed in a sweeping motion? Tanks can't do that. They're not fast enough. Fighter jets wouldn't do that. They'd sweep across the nation and they'd be bombing it, but they'd be missing pieces. Where do you get total annihilation enough to turn? The bittern is a desert creature. So this precept is talking about a desert creature turning a land, America, into a land that's inhabitable, inhabited by desert creatures. The desert will be created by a sweeping agent, and that sweeping agent of destruction. So what can cause that? It's a nuclear explosion. That's the only thing that you've ever witnessed on this planet Earth, man-made, human, and Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is going to put the spirit on these nations to use them, and they come with sweeping agent of destruction. You drop a nuclear bomb, and it destroys in the form of a sweeping that goes out in a radius from that actual particular point of impact. Just like you witnessed, for example, in Terminator 2, with the Great Wall of Fire that just went out and destroyed everything. Now, the scriptures goes on to describe actual ICBMs, which are spoken of as arrows. Now, these are rockets with nuclear explosions, warheads on the end of them. And that's how these nuclear explosions will be transported over to America in order to be activated. Once they hit the ground, you have this nuclear explosion, and that is the only thing, that nuclear power, that nuclear bomb energy, that's the only thing that can destroy a land, turn it into a desert, and do it all in the action of sweeping, the besom of destruction. So again, for this particular prophecy to come to pass, you've got to consider all the technology, the scientific engineering, the building of the silos, the nuclear enrichment, and creating that pure nuclear energy in order to create that weapon, that warhead, and then the iron and the steel that's been welded and bolted together to make a rocket to shoot it up there. All the scientists, the technology, the blueprints, everything that's gone into place to produce this particular thing. This particular precept is really kind of concentrating on the actual nuclear part itself. Like I say, in the scriptures talk about the arrows in many places, and the arrows represent ICBMs, the missile part, if you like. But here, we have the sweeping agent of destruction being described, and that is purely down to nuclear bombs. You couldn't make this prophecy come to pass unless you have a nuclear bomb. So again, this represents today, the modern time, the time that we're living in today. All those thousands of years ago, Isaiah saw what he saw. He didn't know what nuclear energy was. Nobody had enriched nuclear energy. Nobody had they didn't have the games that you have going on today between Iran and America, and these nuclear energy stations that they have, wanting to inspect them and all that. You didn't have that going on. They didn't know what that technology was. Yet Isaiah saw it, and he described what that technology was doing. It destroys in a sweeping motion, and it turns into a place where you see desert creatures inhabit, and that's what he described it as. just like I said to you, what's the ceramic sink? It's the stone that catches the water from the mirror and the chrome taps. So people say, oh, this word and that word and this word and that word, it's not in the scriptures, and they're correct. But the description of these particular technologies are in the scriptures, and if the Spirit's working with you, then you will understand. So I hope that's edifying. I'm going to leave it right there. I mean, I could have gone into this further and deeper. There are many, like I said, there's more precepts out there with different information, but just to kind of weigh it up when you look at it. I mean, I've gone into these particular precepts here, as you can see on the screen, and we've seen a description of, from Apostle John, we've seen the description of a fighter jet, and we've just seen a description of this payment system with the RFID microchip, which is something that actually exists today. We've seen description of the internet. We've seen description of UFOs and tractor beams. We've seen description of nuclear explosions, and we've seen a description of laser beams being shot out of so-called UFOs. There is actually one other, going back to 2 Ezra chapter 6, it just hit me now actually. It says, and when the world that begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. The books, which is the scriptures, shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall all see together. This represents the internet. The internet and all that scientific engineering had to occur for this prophecy, for this precept to come to pass. It says, and the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. So, again, this is time describing the times that we're living in. Babies are very advanced. It says, the women with child shall bring forth untimely children. This is premature babies of 3 or 4 months old, because they should be in the mother for 9 months. But it says that the same time when Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai begins to visit this world, and this is the type of things you're going to be witnessing. It's going to be a common occurrence for women to have their babies early, 3 to 4 months old. And it says, and they shall live and be raised up. And so how is that possible? How is it possible for a premature baby 3 months old? You know how small a premature baby of 3 months old is? Just 6 months more you're supposed to be in that womb. And they're 3 months old and they're born. They should die. But they're able to keep them alive in this modern day times using incubators. So now, to consider this precept, you have to consider the incubator. You have to consider the hospital, the doctor, the technology, the scientific engineering that went into producing all that information and that equipment, and the scientific research, and then the mass production of those incubators. And now there's people out there today that take it for granted. They have a premature baby, and it will just be okay. They'll probably keep it in the hospital for an extra 6 months or something, up until the birth age, and then a couple of months more. And then once the baby seems a bit healthy, puts on a bit of weight, they'll send him home. But having a premature baby in this time, in this day and age, is not considered instant death for the baby, because of the technology of incubators. So again, you've got a description of describing the use of an incubator. That's what Esdras has done. He's described the use of by speaking these words through the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. He's describing the use of an incubator. He's describing the use of modern day high level scientific engineering and technology. So like I say, to recap, you've had the fighter jet, the RFID payment system, the internet, you've had the incubator, you had the UFO, the tractor beam, you've had the laser beams coming out of the UFO, and you've even had the nuclear power, nuclear bomb being described with the besom of destruction. So I hope that's edifying. And just remember, you're not always going to see a particular word written word for word, but you might see the description of that particular thing and the description of it in action. So there's something to consider. So I'll leave it right there. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Bahashim Rakar Kwadash. And until next time, Shalom.